Hey you guys, welcome to the Art of Retouching, 7 ways to understand adjustment layer masks in Affinity Photo. I'm your host, Amy, at your service. I love masks. I love wearing masks, but I also love making masks, refining them, talking about them. And so I'm here to lead you through 7 different methods, from the basic and intuitive to the elegant and abstract. I'll be working in Affinity, as I do, but it is just so remarkably similar to Photoshop that I hope some of you Photoshop fans will decide to stick around. Okay guys, let's jump right in. So we're going to begin with this shot of Leah, and this first method is a subtractive process. The first thing I'm going to do is create a new curves adjustment layer, so I'm going to go up under Layer, New Adjustment Layer, Curves Adjustment, and you can see my keyboard shortcut there. I'm using the default, which is Command or Control M, same as in Photoshop. By the way, you guys, there's a list of shortcuts at the end of this video. And the other way you can do it is you could also come down here and click on this adjustment icon and select curves this way. Once the curves graph pops up, you can click and drag this node, adjust the spline the way you'd like it. As you can see, this layer thumbnail is completely white. The adjustment layer is being applied to the entire image, so that's why that's completely white, okay? So now let's say that you don't want the entire image to be so bright, but you do want this brightness to be applied to some parts of the image. We're going to subtract from the curves adjustment layer. You can come over to your tools and grab your eraser. Mine lives here. You can also use a keyboard shortcut if you have one set up. Mine is E. Slide up and down to create a larger and smaller diameter. And so you can also do that using keyboard shortcuts, and my shortcut is the brackets. We're just going to create a bold line, a sharp, stark line. You see how the eraser is affecting this, this layer thumbnail. I'm going to undo that, Command Z. Now I'm going to erase where I don't want the curves to be. I'm just going to keep the opacity and the flow and the hardness up. And then I'm going to change to a softer brush and just going around and cleaning that up. This is a pretty primitive way to do this, more time consuming than need be, but I'm just trying to show you that this is one way you can achieve it. If you don't understand layer masks and this is your introduction to them, keep watching this thumbnail here on this adjustment layer. So I'm going to show you we can actually click on this thumbnail here while holding down Option or Alt, and we can see a visual representation of our mask, and this is called isolation mode. I like it. So this method here is a beginner method, but we all start somewhere. At the risk of blowing your mind, I also want to mention that instead of the eraser tool in this case, you could have also used a paintbrush with your active color set to black. Is that crazy or what? If you're just so brand new to masks and just trying to wrap your head around them, maybe that's too much for you. So forget I said it and stay with me. Okay, so this is Jason. We're going to be, again, using a subtractive process. We're going to work with other types of adjustment layers a little bit later, but just for the purpose of this tutorial, we're going to stick with just a curves adjustment layer, and we're going to be pulling the curves up. Okay, so this time, instead of grabbing the eraser to subtract from the curves adjustment layer, we are going to be grabbing the freehand selection tool, the lasso. Let's say I want to use no feather at all, just to show you. I could select an area here that I want to delete or remove from the curves adjustment layer. And I'm going to click also on Command V or the Move tool because otherwise it'll just delete the selection. And then I'm going to hit Delete, and it deletes from the adjustment layer. So now you can see that this has created a rather harsh or stark edge. And so I'm going to undo this, Command Z, back up. And now it's completely white again. And now I'm going to use a really nice significant feather for my lasso, my freehand selection tool. And I'm going to make a similar selection. And now you see when I delete that area, that it doesn't create a stark, obvious edge anymore. We have a soft, blended edge. And now I can make that more subtle, pulling those curves back down and pulling the opacity of the layer down. So let's just go back into isolation mode here. Click on this. So Alt or Option click. There's black where the curves adjustment layer is not affecting the image, and then there's white where it is. Adjustment layers inherently have their own masks. I think that's pretty cool, meaning there is no need for a separate mask layer when masking adjustment layers. So knowingly or unknowingly, when you're working with an adjustment layer, you're working with a mask. Okay, so here's the third method that I want to talk to you about, and this is Julie. This method is not a subtractive method, it's an additive method, and we're going to start not by creating a curves adjustment layer, but by creating a selection. So I'm going to use the freehand selection tool or lasso, Command L in my case, and let's say I just want to select some areas of the hair where there's some highlight that I want to emphasize. I can get pretty detailed if I use very, very little feather. I'm not being too precise here though for the purpose of this tutorial. So now I'm going to, at this point, create a new curves adjustment layer, and you'll see that it is applied now to only what is selected. And if you look at the visual representation of the mask, it almost looks like a stencil. You can think of it like a stencil where it's white, it's the holes that are cut out. Now, we could go back if we want and do this again with a freehand selection tool that has more of a feather to it, and that might be nice. There are various ways that you can refine your mask, and I'm only going into just a handful of them today. Another way to do it is we could go up here while on the curves adjustment layer, not the pixel layer now. We can go up under Filter, Gaussian Blur, and we can slide the blur, the degree of blur up and down until we find something that we like. And so we can, that's basically what we would have done if we had created the selection with a feathered lasso tool. And basically I've just kind of given this area a little glow, a little subtle glow. So this is the first additive process that we've discussed. Okay, so now moving on to the fourth method, we are now going to be using another additive process. I hope that it will help you have greater control and precision and efficiency. So we start with a new curves adjustment layer. This is Justin here. And we see the layer thumbnail here. It's completely white, but we want it black this time. So you can achieve that a few different ways. You can achieve it various ways. So you can grab your brush and paint the darn thing black. And then I'm going to undo that. You can grab your freehand selection tool or lasso and select the whole thing, or just go ahead and select the whole thing using a keyboard shortcut. And click on your move tool or Command V and then click delete. And there you see that the thumbnail has also turned black there. Another way you can do it, I'm going to undo again. You can go up to Edit and Fill. There's a keyboard shortcut. And you can fill it with black. But the way that I like to do it is I click Command I, and that inverts from white to black. It's so nice and quick and easy. So now that it's black, I'm going to grab a brush and some white. I'm just going to create these little short whisker kind of lines. This allows me to be really precise. I could be much more precise. So let's just go back into isolation mode here. You can see what I'm doing more clearly. It's all a matter of personal preference. It's your art. So I like that effect. Okay, so this one is pretty fun. This is Vanessa, and we're going to look at using a gradient. Let's say that I want to lighten up her left shoulder, camera right down there. Let's say I want to flatten the image a little bit, decrease that shadow density, but have it be a gradual lighter to darker. What I do first is I create a curves layer, curves adjustment layer, Command M, and I grab my gradient tool, and I'm going to, right on the curves adjustment layer, I'm going to click and drag my gradient tool And you can select your colors. You can even add colors in the middle. I'm adding a gray so that I can create even more of a soft transition, a blended, slow transition. Masks selectively show or hide layer content or show layer content to some specific degree. And when I click off of there, you can see that the places where there was more lightness, more white and lighter grays, that allows the effect to show, and the darker areas, increasingly darker areas, those increasingly block the effect from showing. So let's look at the before and after. Before and after. Before and after. Okay, moving on to number 6. This is Joshua, and we are getting increasingly abstract now. And so hopefully you're following along, and I'm not going too fast for you. I want to have courtesy and not keep you here too long, and I know you can always just re-watch certain sections if you didn't quite get it. This time, it's another additive process. We're going to be selecting the iris of the eyes using the freehand selection tool. You can make your selection in other ways, but for today, I'm going to grab this freehand selection tool, and I'm going to create a curves adjustment layer, and then after I close the curves dialog box, I am not going to deselect, and I'm going to go up and create another adjustment layer. Let's say we go up and do selective color next. Okay, and I want to make some adjustments to the selective color. I don't know why I would want to do this to him, but I like this shot, so I'll just give you some temporarily unusually colored eyes, Josh. Still with the selection in place, those little dancing ants. And we'll go up and we'll grab maybe some vibrance. We'll pull that down, make his eyes a little more kind of slate gray. Okay, and then we deselect. So we've created 3 adjustment layers to one particular area. I can select all 3 layers and use, say, an eraser, for example, to sort of help modify the selection after the fact by maybe just kind of cleaning it up a little bit around the edges. You can group those 3 layers as well, which is nice, and then they are all living in the same group. You can go up under Arrange Group or Command G, and then you can adjust the entire group, the opacity of it. You can turn it on and off. You can also go into the group folder there and adjust each one, modify each one after the fact. Okay, so the final way that I wanted to talk about using masks, thinking about masks. This is the most sophisticated or the most elegant that I'll be showing you today. First, I'm going to start by creating a curves adjustment layer. And this is me messing with my hair. So, again, in this example, I'm going to make multiple adjustments to the same area, but I'm going to do it in a different way. So here I'm going to create a curves adjustment layer, Command M. And I'm going to put it in its own group right away. So I'm going to click on the curves adjustment layer and hit Command G. And then I'm going to click down here on mask layer, this little icon, while holding down Option or Alt. And that will create a black mask layer. If you didn't click Alt or Option, it would be white. So I'm going to undo. So I'm just going to click Option and the mask layer, it's all black. So you don't see the effect of that adjustment layer, that curves adjustment layer that I just made. Now, click on the mask, and I'm going to grab a brush and some white, and while on that mask layer, I'm going to just start painting. And I'm going to paint just in the irises. I'll just do the same kind of change to my own eyes as I did to Josh's eyes. Once you get the hang of it and you understand it, I think it's just such a nice way to create a mask. You can erase parts of it, select and delete parts of it, add black paint over some of it. If you want to modify it, you can blur it. There are lots of different ways you can modify that mask. The next thing is, while on that curves adjustment layer, I'm going to go up and create a new adjustment layer, and I'll do selective color adjustment. Then I will go up and do a vibrance adjustment. Can you guys hear that? My refrigerator just went on. Darn it. I was so close. Anyway, you can see when I click on and off this group, the mask layer is governing what the affected area will be. And there you have it. You guys, people say there are no shortcuts to success, but we know different. Here are some shortcuts that I think you might find handy. You guys, thank you so much for being here. I'm really grateful that you took the time out of your beautiful life to check out my video, and I hope that it demystified adjustment layer masking for you and or helped to up your mask game in some way. Thanks again for being here, and until next time, signing off from Ozzy Headshots.